Hello and welcome back to another episode, Tribe family. If you are enjoying these episodes and feeling completely inspired to do possibly just as I am, you should give Anchor.fm a try and record your own podcast absolutely free. They have all the tools to be as creative as you want, and not only that, they'll do all the work to distribute your episodes to every major platform. Best part is, you can even start earning money from having just a little bit of fun. Get over to Anchor.fm, download their app, or head over to their full website. Until then, enjoy this next amazing travel story from my next guest.
Good morning. This is your wake-up call. Wake-up call. Wake-up call. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello, podcast world. Welcome back and thank you for tuning in with our tribe and Inspire the Collective. Welcome to our first season of the podcast series and to our community of inspirational people. Prepare your ears, mind, and motivation to be inspired by the topics, as each episode will be with a different guest, bringing new information and fresh perspectives. The mission of each season is to give recognition to the weavers out there, the ones that are living their dream life, while also inspiring the dreamers, the ones looking to develop their own passions to chase the life they have always wanted to live. Season 1 is underway and we are jumping into another episode of What's in Your Backpack, a season full of travel topics where we will be chatting with international travelers from all over the world in all different walks of life. Each episode will bring insider travel tips and tricks, entertaining personal stories for the do's and don'ts, and guided inspiration for the where to's and where nots to benefit your travel addictions. I'm Michael O'Shea, aka your neighborhood travel guide, aka King of the 2-Day Holiday, aka Catch Me If You Can, aka the traveling hobo. And friend, our guest this week is an affluent traveler taking to cities through his previous careers and also his personal desires. While on his travels, he has been spreading joy and inspiration with his side business that he is now taking internationally. He is the creator and founder of his new business, and it's called Positive Propaganda. This has made him a local celebrity and it is gaining traction quickly around the internet. I'm really excited for him to share more about this awesome journey he is on, along with all his travel tips and stories from years of globetrotting experience. Please let me introduce Mr. Positive Propaganda himself, Roberto Jose. How are you, sir? And thank you for joining me on this 5th episode.
Yeah. So excited. Nice intro, man. That was impressive. I should have you do that all the time. I just have that on record.
Just bring me around as like your hype man.
Wherever I'm going. I'm not gonna introduce myself. He's gonna introduce me, and then we'll keep talking after that.
Before your news interviews, before your YouTube stuff, I just jump on as like your little sidekick vibe. I'm cool with that. We can do that.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you here with me and to hear more about this business for sure. A lot of people are going to be really excited, I think, to hear about what you're doing through this business adventure. And really, I can't wait for you to unfold some of your stories and you know, how we can all prepare for this post-COVID travel life.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a post-COVID travel life. It's a necessity that humanity will not go without, I think, for sure. So it's just how to do it safe and still have fun. And I see it just as much as I can see you see it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems that most of the people I've been asking about it see the same thing. So that's really good. But Roberto, before we jump in, I have this quick disclaimer for the guests to protect the listeners before we get into this episode. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, perfect. You know, I don't want any bullshit just to create the story for the show, and I don't think you're going to do it with all your positive propaganda that's going on. But the intent of our time together is to bring raw and honest facts from your personal experiences to benefit our listeners for their travel future. We want to know you, that nitty gritty, whether that be the stories we can't almost fathom to be true, to even the embarrassing stories you have a hard time admitting happened. All real, no judgment, and sharing with the sole intent to inspire. Roberto, are you in and willing to open your travel backpack and share with the world your story?
Oh, hell yeah. And first point of actual truth within this is your pronunciation of my name. So it's actually Roberto, not Roberto. And then we can move forward now.
Okay. Should we start over then? Mr.
No, dude, I like correcting you during.
All right, from Mr. Roberto Jose. I should be saying it correctly.
There it is.
All right, I apologize for that, but thank you for correcting me. I don't mind being wrong.
You said only truth. So I thought, hey, might as well start with the truth right there.
Perfect. Thank you then. Real quick, just to share how we know each other, we kind of met through a mutual friend, which was Keith, which was on the first episode, and how funny, full circle. Now I'm having you on the 5th episode. I was working in Singapore and you were out traveling Asia, I think for work.
Yeah, I was working at booking.com out of Australia after the startup that I was working out of was acquired. I moved to Sydney, Australia, living on Bondi Beach, living the dream out there. It was crazy. And I had to fly to Singapore because our manager of our division of booking.com was based out of Singapore. So I would find myself there for business meetings and for, getting the group together to talk about strategy and work parties and things of that sort. And Keith was like, dude, my friend, Michael O'Shea is managing the restaurant at the top of the Mandalay Bay freaking hotel. The
Marina Bay Sands.
Marina Bay Sands.
Yeah.
Of course, you should hook up. You guys would love each other. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. And like, I remember the first day I reached out to you and I had never met you before ever. And I show up with 6 people from work. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I know a guy at the top of the Marina Bay Sands. He's going to, it's going to be great. We're going to have a table.
Sure, dude.
Yeah, dude, exactly. You showed up and you had the best table overlooking the city. And I'm like, wow, it's really good to meet you. And that happened 3 or 4 times.
So epic.
Over the course of my time in Australia, because I kept coming back to Singapore.
What an amazing journey you've had. And it was so cool to have you come up and meet me. And, I met so many people at that job.
Yeah.
Have become some of the closest friends that I have, and they're all doing amazing things. This is, again, one of the huge, great benefits of traveling and just getting out there and connecting with people that we never met each other, and yet we're still friends 4.5 years later.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
No, those are the moments that you live for and you remember. I mean, like serendipity.
Yeah, this is why the addiction runs deep.
Exactly. And thankful, I love how friends, when you're traveling, just throw you at other friends. They're like, you're both out there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best parts of traveling.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So Mr. Roberto, please, I know you, I know what you're up to, but please help the listeners understand who you are, what you're doing, where you're living, and kind of just, man, I can't wait to get into positive propaganda. But first, who are you?
My name is Roberto Casanueva. I was born in Chile. That's why my name is Roberto. I grew up in California. I've done every job you could ever imagine. And as of most recent, I've been a project manager within tech companies and helping them grow and consulting. I found kind of the balance between purposeful work and business. I think it's a really amazing synergy of the two because they're not mutually exclusive. I was in sustainability and Earth Day and public space and urban planning. And then I jumped into tech. And then I realized that wow, business models have a lot more oomph and chutzpah to grow and have a ripple effect longer. And it's more sustainable because it's a business model. So that's kind of the nutshell of my professional world. And currently quarantined on a vineyard with family. And
sounds terrible.
And growing, had a great Pinot Noir last night, and growing this side project of a business / nonprofit, which would actually galvanize the two things that I was just talking about, which is, using business as a force for good. And it's called positive propaganda because at the end of the day, I'm inspired by how our space interacts with us, our space, inhabitable space, tangible space. What's on your walls? How's your room look? When you get out into your driveway, what do the streets look like? What billboards do you see?
Trees, it's telephone poles, it's signs, it's yard signs. Your tangible environment for where you're influencing is literally everything.
There's a great quote by a very famous designer of there is no bad design. It's either the lack of design or good design. It's like nobody took thought of how we're designing this space, or people actually put time into thinking about the design and how it affects people. And that's what I want us to all question about the world and the space that we inhabit. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that what we take in with our eyes and put into our mind is really what we become. And that's why I really think what you're doing is pretty awesome. And so you've been incubating this little project for quite a few years now, right?
3 years. It started with one sign that that I put up. So it started with a crazy idea that we could feasibly buy a plane with a banner behind it that said "You are incredible" and fly it over an entire city, and what that would do to the city.
Yeah.
If people looked up and saw, not the Goodyear blimp or Geico, no, I haven't done this. That's an aspiration still. So that was the original idea, and then it said, well, $3,000 to get a sign, flying over a city. Maybe there's a better use of that money. Why don't we start with, smaller signs? And then we started spray painting signs, and I had parties in the park where other people would come and spray paint them. And then we created the hashtag, put that first sign out, and people started taking pictures of it. I remember I was in Denver at a conference, and I was searching the hashtag feverishly for last week because I set up the sign, and I found that first repost, and I was like, okay, there's a call and response. So I can put these things out into the public space, and then there's a call and response. That's freaking cool. And then I got more granular with it. It's like, well, instead of spray painting signs, I could print signs and put them on telephone poles. And then I bought stickers, and then it went from there. And I just having something that you give to that's kind of outside of all of the reasons why we're supposed to do things in this world. It's like we have this inner Jiminy Cricket that's always like, well, you should be doing that, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing this. And those things come from a lot of different places, and social pressures and parents and brothers and family and past mentors or whatever. And for me, it was the one that there wasn't a voice for, and there hadn't been one. It was more like, why not just put stuff in public space that might be an uplifting moment in somebody's day that has nothing to do with me. It was a way to not always be focusing on myself and analyzing what's going on in my life. It was a simple practice, almost like a meditation in a way of gifting this. And I would do it, I was going through some tough times in that, a breakup and then the death of my father. And all honesty, of those 2-3 years that I've been growing this, and positive propaganda was my solace. It was my thing to go and do that got me through those times. I would get on a bike and just start putting up flyers, and then it would ripple the next couple of days, and people would find them and talk to me. And it grew organically, as organic as organic gets.
I love that.
It was selfless. And then every time I put energy into it, the universe and the world and people responded. And then I was on the news a couple times. I did a YouTube video, and it just kept growing. Now we're in a moment where positivity is feasibly more popular and necessary than ever has been. So here we go, Geronimo. Let's get it. Let's see where this goes. And I'm putting it out there to the world with bigger ambitions.
I think it's so great too, at a perfect time when everyone's needing some positivity in their life at home, or in their uncertainty. It's such a good movement that you're on, and how ironic that 3 years ago we never ever would have foresaw this happening, what we're in right now, the entire world. But how great that it's been something you've been rolling out, and it's staying true to who you are. You don't have to change anything that you're doing, and just keep moving forward.
I'm very lucky in that way.
It's incredible. What was the first country you ever dropped a positive propaganda sign outside of US? Where was the first country?
So obviously I have other people were inspired by this, and they started doing it. I mean, my travels have been lesser as of late than the stories that we will embark upon in this conversation. The greatest thing was that organic. My friend in Australia started making signs and just started putting them up, and that happened. And then I have an ambassador today that's putting them up, and wherever he goes, runs marathons, he did one in Japan, he did in Vienna, he did Paris. He put signs. And my friend from Costa Rica just recently went to Argentina, and she put up a bunch of stickers there. So me personally, I actually haven't put them up in other countries except Canada. But because it inspires people and people run with it, and I don't give them direction like you got to go do this now or pay them, or anything. They just inspired and they run with it. That I've been in a bunch of other countries just because of that inspiration that other people feel to have positive ripple effects in the space,
Yeah, I love it. And so later, before we get out of here near the end of the show, I want you to touch on that ambassador program, because I think that's really interesting. And people that have that influence in their heart that want to go out and do something and make a difference, they can become part of your ambassador program and start being out spreading positive propaganda.
Truth. Everybody can. I mean, you can write a note today with a magic marker or something and put it in your window, and guess what? People are going to see it. So we're all ambassadors. If you want to take it to the next step and get a staple gun and a bunch of swag and materials, I got you.
That's amazing. So you've lived outside the States, you've traveled a bunch. When was the first time you left the United States to travel?
I started outside of the United States.
Okay. You were born in Chile.
But it was only 3 months, so I was born in Chile. And then 3 months later, I moved to San Diego, actually, with my family. So at 13, my father took me to Chile for 3 months to live with him and see my birthland, for the first time. And it was just incredible, absolutely incredible. But I think for this discussion and what we're talking about, when I was 17, my brother took me to Spain and France for 2 weeks. I was 17 years old.
Oh, man.
And I had no idea about Europe because, traveling to South America, countries are different, and Europe is got a lot going on. So at 17, he took me to Spain, and it blew my head clear off. I could drink anything, everything was, go for it. No big deal. There wasn't any rules. I wasn't with my parents, it was him and his friend from high school. They were 5 years older than me. So they were in their 20s, early 20s. I think we saw more sunrises than anything else.
That seemed to happen to me when I was in Spain as well. Barcelona and Ibiza. Yeah.
So, man, the best, it was get up, have dinner, go into the evening, dance, stay up all night. I mean, because Europe parties like crazy in comparison to the US. Have breakfast, see the sunrise. Always have breakfast before you go to bed, and then go to sleep. I remember our families were asking us, have you been to any of the museums yet? And we're like, man, we gotta take a day off and like go take some pictures of the museum. So it looks like we actually did some traveling.
Yeah, like you did some cultural type of investigation.
Yeah. So at 17, I was in Europe for 2.5 weeks, and it opened up. That was the bug, right? When we talk about the travel bug, 13, I was with my father, and we were in Chile, and it was like meeting family, and it was beautiful. But I caught the bug at 17 when I went to Europe for 2.5 weeks. It was like, I don't want this to ever stop.
How fun.
It was incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So it's been some years since 17. So have you kept track of how many countries you've been in since then?
I have not done the actual math of it, but it's up there, probably close to 30.
That's right where I'm at.
Yeah. The whole thing about it is that you change, What I realized after, so like that was the first trip. And then the second trip was my other brother sent me to Europe for 3.5 months by myself after high school. So,
oh my gosh.
So talk about like, the next level. So traveling by yourself is another full topic about personal growth and exploring who you are and the confines that you live in based on your surroundings, based on the people that you surround yourself with. When you travel by yourself, you lose all of that and you can be anybody and you can grow and change. It's incredible. So imagine at 18, just got out of high school, you've got a lot to learn about yourself.
For sure. That's one thing I really love about Europe is it's highly encouraged right after high school to leave and go travel because you do get to investigate who you are as a human being instead of in the States, and not trying to downplay this, but you're forced to believe you have to go right into university. And look at all the people that change their major 2-3 times within 4 or 5 years, waste a ton of money, still have no real idea who they are, but they're just trying to chase a dream that they were told to follow. And in Europe, it's just like, go get lost, go figure out who you are. And then when you come back, you have some direction. And I really appreciate that about Europe.
I mean, the gap year program is an idea that's continuing to propagate across the country. And I know a lot of organizations that pride themselves in it. So like, that's literally what my brother gave me, knowing that I grew up in a small town and was very isolated from the rest of the world. It was like, go get some perspective before you start making decisions about the rest of your life. It might be a good time to do that. And thankfully I have older brothers that kick ass in that regard. Not everybody's that lucky, but there are gap year programs with people that you can sign up for, and I think everybody should take that time after high school. Do not go directly into college.
Yeah. And a lot of parents can find exchange programs and almost cost nothing compared to wasting 2 years of college, university, and then have to rechange majors. So I always, my friends that have kids, I always try and really encourage them to let your kid get out there and fail a few times in the real world and then put them in school, because then they'll know who they are and what they want to be. Yeah.
I mean, one size shoe, it doesn't fit all. And I think some people are driven and know exactly what they want to be from a very early age, and they're working for NASA now or whatever was their passion. But I think the majority of us are perplexed by the amount of options and what's going on in this world, and some perspective can really be the best thing. And I think until you've tasted that, you don't really know what it is. And I think that is the gift that is travel. At most, it's perspective on your life and yourself and your passions.
Yeah, there's a quote that I really love that people, a lot of people say, "Oh, when you're traveling, you're running away from something." Well, maybe I'm actually running towards something. Have you thought about it that way? Maybe a lot of people are running away, but a lot of people are running towards finding out what it really is that they want and what they want to be.
I think it's like, why give it a negative? Why not
Right,
that
why?
we're looking, we're curious, we're not settling. I think that's the whole thing, is that people who travel they're still curious, and curiosity is a beautiful thing. And whoever created the curiosity kills the cat thing is stupid. That's not real. Curiosity, maybe it did kill the cat, but not the human,
Yeah.
Curiosity is a great thing to celebrate. And if we continue our curiosities, that's only finding more and learning more. So it's not running away from anything. It's just staying curious.
I like that you brought up being curious. And that's something I say to a lot of people: stay curious. Don't stop investigating. One thing I'm so happy about my father is he's like, don't ever take the first answer as the only answer. Ask questions. I always said that, stay curious. And people forget that as kids, we're always curious, always investigating, always looking for new. As kids, there's no right or wrong, right? We don't know good or bad until we're told this is wrong, this is right, that's bad, that's good. And then you shut down that curiosity factor. And when you start traveling, it reopens up that little kid inside of you. And it's such a great discussion, man. We can go on about that forever too.
Yeah, there's a new frontier out there, and that's keep curiosity alive. Travel does that, and so important. It's growth at the end of the day.
I agree. And some of my videos I've been posting on Facebook and Instagram is all about staying curious and keep investigating, keep experimenting with life. Don't let that curiosity shut down.
Everything's always changing. So there's no absolutes.
When was the last time you got out of the country, since you said you've been sat put for a bit?
Man,
you got out there.
I went to Canada recently, but that kind of doesn't count. I mean, the traveling from 2.5-3 years ago, when I came back from Australia, that travel itinerary, after traveling and living in Australia, I had a lot of focus on coming back to the States and being close to family and being close to loved ones. So I kind of your priorities shift after you've lived on the other side of the planet for almost 2 years. So last travel was Bali, Cook Islands, Thailand, Tasmania, every part of Australia you could imagine, Melbourne. I mean, I was working for a hotel company, so I was flying all over Southeast Asia. It didn't suck. That's for sure.
I'm going to say, sounds miserable.
You were out there too.
Says nobody.
You went to most of those places too, let's be honest.
Right. Now, speaking of last time getting out of here, and since we're all kind of sitting in place at the moment, with this coronavirus, you had brought it up just recently, as we talked about post-COVID, does this affect your personal opinion on traveling? And for a lot of people that don't travel as much as kind of people like us, how can some people start really looking at this post the shutdown on to keep their travel curiosity alive and happy and fruitful and positive?
Yeah, I mean, your personal health is now being highlighted more so than it ever has been, as far as something that we all need to be responsible for in affecting others, because this is one of those things that affects people who have tough health issues already. So I think what I see is, I'm kind of an optimist, brutal optimist is what my friends call me. What I see is that this is really just creating more kindness and more respect between humanity. And there's going to be new norms that happen. And those new norms, we're highly adaptable creatures. So those new norms will be adapted, and we will then take to the skies and take to the countries and go again. We're so connected as a world today more than we ever have been. And I think that's not something that's reversible. It's not going to go away. We are one planet, and we're brutal optimism. We've never all been in a collective moment connected by a similar foe than right now. The world has never been this connected, as far as could have been plagues back in the day, but they weren't talking about them, and they probably didn't get to the US because they weren't as connected. And I think today we have the opportunity to bound together as a one civilization. And I think that is happening if you look for it, because it is happening. It doesn't always make the news. So continue to look for it, because it's always happening. And given travel in that regard, yeah, I see travel happening again, because there's almost this time period of sitting still, that's not going to be, it's just the norms are going to change. So when you think about what is normal, people wearing masks is going to be normal, and it already was in Asia in a lot of ways. And
Right.
and humans are creative, and we're going to have fun with it. And they're going to be, designer stuff, and there's going to be funny ones, and there's going to be joke ones, and working on positive propaganda masks.
Just was going to say that. Where's your positive propaganda masks?
I'm working on them already.
Yeah.
And I found a company that makes them, and that's going to be normal. And there's going to be more hand sanitizer places, and there's going to be, we're going to be a little bit more hyper focused on our effect on each other,
Sure.
which isn't a negative thing.
No,
Again,
no,
that's
not
a
at all.
beautiful thing.
You
But
have to care
are we
for each other?
Yeah, but are we creative and innovative species that can figure out a way to do it and do it safely? Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
And that's right around the corner, because the human spirit loves it. Obviously, the industry and then business will want that stuff to come back. Obviously, there's so many companies and industries that are built on that and that are taking a huge hit right now. So I think innovation and creativity will win the day in how we travel. I have no doubt that will come back. And I think, obviously, after being kind of landlocked or cabin fevered for a while, the thirst people will be quite parched.
Yeah. I'm already on like Sahara Desert.
Yeah, no,
Thirst.
I'm looking at those Costa Rica tickets.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think people just staying mindful of like what they consume, like you had said earlier, what you consume when it comes to how you perceive travel and where you're going, and be mindful that maybe what you're consuming isn't totally correct. And Miss Tanaya, in my third episode, she had said, ask people that you know specifically. Don't go off just what you see online or what you hear. Ask people that you know and get real information. And I think that's really, really the most beneficial for anyone, because we're all 2, 3, 4 degrees of separation. I can connect people to a lot of people, which I can connect to you, which you know more people than I know. So it's like we can get each other the information for where we're going and be positive about it.
And it's just like, if you imagine safety, there's times where it was a good time to travel to China, or there's a good time to travel to Italy, and sometimes there's a bad time to travel to those places because of civil unrest, or Egypt during the Tahrir Square protest. I mean, the world is always in a constant balance of tragedy and beauty. And that will always be the case. It's just a louder moment right now, but guess what? There's a loud moment of beauty that's going on right now too. You just have to see it, you just have to look for it.
Yes. So true. All right, Roberto. Since I keep trying to mess this up.
It's okay.
A nice little introduction as we start this episode off, but I want to get into unpacking your backpack. And first off, a lot of people, I always like asking what people's bucket list says. Some people don't have a bucket list. Some people just think they're kind of BS, but I want to know, do you have a bucket list? And if you do, what is the top place on your bucket list?
Yeah, bucket lists change and constantly evolve. Especially once you get the travel bug, you're like, so it's like when people ask you, what's your favorite movie or your favorite album, and you're like, dude, I ain't got one of those.
Yeah, or song.
Or song. You're like, one? Do you have an hour? Let's talk.
Exactly.
So right now, my bucket list has been a place in Northern Europe for a long time, because I'm inspired most by cities and density and life. So Copenhagen has been on my bucket list, which is pretty easily accessible. It's just I haven't been. I've been to far off places in the middle of nowhere, but I really want to see a civilization that thrives incredibly well. And I think quality of life in Northern Europe has always been ranked as one of the top, because of kind of their both capitalism and socialist ways of being. When people feel taken care of, they flourish. And that's, an opposite thought of what we have here in the States sometimes. So Copenhagen, based on its public space, based on its livability, based on its literally people biking and walking and public transportation, and just like what a thriving city.
Yeah.
A city that was built to work and work well
in general, all around,
and work well together. So Copenhagen is kind of the top of my bucket list right now, very much so.
Yeah, I haven't been up that far either. I would love to get up there. What are some places, or a place that's just completely captivated you? And seeing that you travel so much that you've been there several times, my place is Bali. Like I can't stop. So what is it for you that's just like, I love this place. I could go back once a month, every other week if you could.
Tasmania.
Really?
Tasmania is, the secret. You heard it here, folks. The secret is out. Tasmania is the end of the earth.
Yeah.
It's like if the flat earthers were right, Tasmania would be at the end. So Australia is a large continent and country, and then you have this island off the southern coast of it that's at the same kind of latitude as New Zealand and is beautiful and topographically gorgeous as New Zealand, but nobody goes to it because they go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So it's undervalued. Australians don't like going there because it's too cold. They don't like cold weather. They really don't. They would whinge. They would tell you that themselves. They would whinge about all the cold weather. That's an Australian word. Whinge means to complain. It's one of my favorite words. So Tasmania, end of the earth. Nobody goes there because they go to New Zealand because it's obviously more famous, and Australians don't really value it. So it's this like untouched, pristine, incredible landscape, incredible topography, mountain ranges, beautiful beaches. There's an art scene. There's amazing food. It's just, and it's like not known. It's almost a secret. Nobody goes, oh, I need to go to Tasmania. The only thing people know about is the freaking animated character, the Tasmanian devil, which doesn't make any of those noises and doesn't even look like that. That's not even what it looks like. So in the time that I was living in Australia, I went to Tasmania once, and then I went 3 more times in a year. So I went 4 times in 1 year because I loved it so much. And I went by myself every time, and I fell in love every time. And it's unknown.
Never been. I've wanted to go, but now that's went to a different level of wanting to go. What's an incredibly just off, like random place you've been? Just people, they ask, why would you go there? What would be the point?
I think for me, it was like there's 2 places that come to mind. One, it was in Mexico, and it was I drove a Volkswagen bus through Mexico for 3 months in college, and we were working on organic farms and woofing, which is willing workers on organic farms, which is really just people trying to get free labor. So we were moving boulders and doing weird stuff at places, not really doing that much organic farming. And we found this organization through friends, and they were connected to the Zapatistas, which is actually a militant group that has taken back land in the south of Mexico in Chiapas. So we were literally folded into their group and folded into their cities. And these are cities that you have to like go through, like literally a border to get into in the middle of Mexico. I mean, the southern part of Mexico. So we lived amongst the Zapatistas for about 3 weeks doing theater performances about genetically modified corn and hanging out with literally a militant group that took land back from the Mexican government.
So random. It is random.
It was awesome. They were great people. So nice. Obviously, they did some pretty messed up things in '94, but since then, the Mexican government doesn't mess with them, and they just have sovereignty and their own land, and they take care of each other better than the Mexican government would. So yeah, we were like, there was this guy called Subcomandante Marcos, and he was like the main guy. He was their Che Guevara, and we were there for New Year's, and I was watching him speak with all of these people, part of the revolution. I was like, wow, how did I get here?
Dang. So you do definitely get out there and do some crazy stuff. I love that. So that's part of just, become part of your travel identity. And that's kind of something I want to uncover too, with like your identity. And when you get out there and travel, because I think the more we travel, we do start to incorporate this identity of how we travel and how we like to travel. So do you like to travel more alone or with someone?
I like to travel alone.
Yeah, I do too.
Very much so.
It's fun to be with someone. I'm not going to lie. Like it is fun, but for, a shorter period of time.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing about travel is that anything is possible. I mean, that's life. Anything is possible all the time, but you feel it even more when you're traveling. And to confine ideas of what's possible based on somebody else's needs is really, all of a sudden you have these like codependent realities of like checking in with somebody else when you're traveling. And that's like the antithesis to what travel is for me. It's about saying yes to everything that comes around, and you never really know what might come around. And if you got to check in with somebody else about saying yes to it, it's like, that doesn't really work,
It's hard. Traveling with Keith, I'll say we got pretty lucky. We're both pretty easy people. And I would imagine traveling with you is probably pretty simple. You start to realize who you can travel with and who you can't. But still, there's times, where like maybe Keith wanted to sleep in and I wanted to be out. Or I wanted to sleep in, Keith wanted to be out. So, there still is a little bit of that push and pull.
Yeah, I mean, you learn the most about somebody when you travel with them, right? It's like, what are the levels? It's like living with them and then traveling with them, and then you can marry them, right? You should do those
I
things
was just going to ask you, have you traveled with the opposite sex? And
Yeah,
how do you
I've
feel
traveled
about that?
Oh yeah, I've had great travels with girlfriends.
Amazing.
Mainly because it's you get to dote on them even more, and you get to like take them out more and celebrate them more.
Yeah. Cool.
And I'm more well traveled than most people that I've dated, so I've got to be the leader in those situations and say,
And that's fun.
but I mean, the most important thing of traveling, which should be applied to regular life too, is that you do you. If you need to take a day, you do that, and you make the existence of your traveling okay to be separate or together, or separate or together as it changes. And you just, it's okay to be selfish when you're traveling. Like that's
100%. I think it's
really,
I think that term selfish is deemed so badly, but being selfish when it comes to ourselves should be number one. Like, again, if you're treating everyone appropriately and kindly and with love, you could be selfish all you want with everything that you do, even when you have a life partner. You should be selfish.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't need to be a negative thing. And it definitely, when you're traveling, you should always do that, because people will come at you for different ideas of things, and you're like, well, is that my best interest? No, I'm not going to really do that. Or this is, and that's okay. You got to keep doing that.
Yeah, I've been told that me doing how I travel and just leave and quit jobs and I stay away from my family is like, I'm selfish. You're damn straight. I am selfish. Like, at the end of the day, I sleep with me every day. When I die, I'm going to die with me. So you're damn straight, I'm selfish.
I mean, I think that is part of traveling, is that you're doing something that grows your perspectives in this world, and that's investing in yourself. And it doesn't take anything away from your love of other people. It's just,
it grows it, if anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree with that.
When you get out there and get going, do you, I just started taking this on, but do you journal? Like, do you write in your phone or type or?
So I've done a couple of trips, and journaling has been super important within, I journal a lot. Yeah,
good.
As of late, I haven't been traveling a lot, and I didn't journal that much in Australia, but when I was really much more diligent about it in the past, because you're going through so much, and then you can never remember those moments. So like the 3.5 months that I did in Europe, I journaled every day. I have an amazing book that I'd love to turn into a screenplay one day, because that trip was incredible.
So amazing.
When I walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain, a month of walking across the entire country of Spain, I journaled every day. Like there's a different way to capture moments, and most people do it with photos and and now you can, but the tough thing about photos is that you find yourself reliving your travels before they're over, which is horrible. You're going through photos and constantly looking at, I loved the ability to journal and then kind of put it away. And that's a way to kind of to capture the moments and all the in-betweens, because you're not going to remember all of them.
I will say you're very right. And I got into that phase when I was with Keith in Europe. I didn't want to journal. I thought, I'm going to waste my time for 20 minutes writing. I could be out doing something. And that was the dumbest thing I could have done and think. And so anyone that's like going to take a big trip, you're going to go out for weeks, a month, 4 or 5 months, absolutely journal. God, at least voice record in your phone and just record your day. Take you less than 5 minutes, because I have so many memories I don't remember from that trip that are just little minute details that I wish I remember. When I went to South America, I typed it in my phone. I didn't voice record it, but I typed it, and I have every single day. And now I have all that memory. And so it's really important. I'm glad that you do it, because it's huge. You should do it. Photos is different. It's totally different.
It's a muscle though. Like, so if you're about to go on a trip, like start journaling now before you leave. It's a muscle that if you're not used to journaling, it's hard to just jump into it. There's always a moment for respite within your travels. You're not going to be going every day at all times. There's always a moment for respite.
Yeah.
And those moments are important. So you can go even, stronger the next day. So couldn't recommend journaling more.
Yeah, I agree. Now the photos are super recommended as well. So now when you do photos, do you, I used to just be like, I only took the photos of the things and I never wanted to take selfies, but some people have like a super proper selfie game. And then some people are just like my last guest, April, she's like, I'm Asian. So I always look for the Asian people and I have them take a photo of me. It's like, how do you usually take your photos?
Yeah. One of the cool things about the Camino, which was again, 10 years ago at this point, I used disposable cameras, which was really fun, because
that is fun,
because you can't look at them. And then you have that Christmas moment at the end of your trip where you unpack it. They might not be that great,
cool.
But so that was, I would say, like anybody who wants to like totally be a little kid with your travels, like buy disposable cameras and then have that moment at the end of your trip where you unpack it and you get a Christmas present to look at all the photos, which was really fun. That's kind of a little travel hack to make the photos more exciting.
Yeah.
But today's day and age, with everyone with a phone and posting and sharing your story as it's happening, which wasn't as normal back then, I like, most importantly, photos that tell a story of location. So I don't have like a crazy selfie game.
Yeah.
I want people to see what daily life looks like in different places. So I like capturing, the busy street in the middle of Marrakesh when there's more people in the street than you've ever seen in your entire life, or that remote beach that is ridiculous, in Bali, in Uluwatu, in the south, or those places. Because at the end of the day, you want to plant seeds for other people to be curious to go travel. I mean, look,
Sure.
this is what we're doing here. Yeah, selfie game. I definitely want to remember people, so I'm less inclined to take pictures of just myself places. I want to take pictures with other people that I've come in contact with. That's really important to me.
That's why I like that you said that photos that tell a story. That's why when my friend Roman told me about Google Street Maps, and it shows all the places around the world. There's so many stories through that app.
That's a good call. Yeah. You can feel where you're about to go.
Yeah. Now, do you read any books when you go or before you go, like about cultural knowledge? Do you start learning the language? Because I'm sure you speak Spanish then, I would imagine.
I speak Spanish decently. I'm not fluent, but you're lucky to have me if we're in a Spanish speaking country.
Like Keith.
Ordering food, you're stoked. I've gone back and forth with reading books, but I think, again, journaling and reading, it's nice to have some aspect of respite or routine within, because you can't just go. You have to, there has to be some normalcy into a routine where you can, not routine every day, but at least every couple of days, you're like, okay, I'm gonna read for a minute and catch up. Some people say
Right.
the soul moves as fast as somebody on a bicycle. So oftentimes when you fly somewhere, your soul is catching up, and sometimes you need to allow your soul to catch up to yourself. And that reading really helps with that, and journaling really helps with that. When I was 18 and did that trip, I had to read 6 different books and write essays about them to get more money, which my brother set up, which was really funny. When I was in Mexico, I read Life of Pi and I couldn't put it down. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But as far as doing research on places, getting the Lonely Planets or the things like that, I always was excited to get those books, and then I would get them and then I would never read them, because I like to learn by doing. If there was any major cultural faux pas, definitely learn about those. But when you're in places like Singapore and shit like that, but other than that, no, I like to learn through experience more than I like. It's like watching a preview or not watching a preview before you see a movie. It's sometimes you don't want to watch the preview,
Yeah,
especially if it's a crap, movie, because they'll show you the whole freaking movie in the preview.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would rather go and experience than get some cultural understanding, and usually through talking with people that have been places. That's how I learn.
Not walking in with an expectation, because
that part too.
Since you've lived in the States for a long time, but you actually lived in Australia, and this is, I think, would be really interesting to know. What are some cool spots in Australia that people, most travelers have never been, that the average traveler wouldn't know? I know that there's the 12 Apostles, which is pretty badass, which I haven't been. Is there any really cool places in Oz that you know about that people should be checking out?
So I did the 12 Apostles twice, which is it's called the Great Ocean Road. So the Great Ocean Road is kind of similar to Highway 1 in California, Big Sur. That just incredibly impressive drive along an amazing landscape along the ocean. Kookaburra Cottages is the most incredible.
Kookaburra Cottages
is on the Great Ocean Road, is the most unique place you will ever stay in your entire life. The entire place is yarn bombed by this awesome old dready mama that is just yarn bombing her whole place, and they're not on the web. They don't have a website. They're not on booking.com. You have to literally drive up to it and find it. Kookaburra is a bird, and it sounds like a monkey in Australia. Kookaburra Cottages was the best serendipitous hotel I've ever found in my entire life.
How cool.
It was the most unique, special place I have ever found, and the wildlife is incredible. So yeah, Australia, 12 Apostles, Great Ocean Road, incredible. Obviously Tasmania, because we've talked about it before, but parts that people, there's so many go-tos, the entire North and Queensland and all of those incredible beaches in the tropics. But that's just like really, like there's a lot of places in Australia that are just really overdone, and and that a lot of people will go. So again, Tasmania, Hobart, the Bay of Fires, Wineglass Bay, all of those places in Tasmania are much more sparsely packed and so freaking unique. Great Ocean Road. And then Western Australia, there's an incredible wine country south of Perth called the Margaret River, which is
Margaret River, or is it Margaret? Yeah, Margaret River. I think there's a Margaret Valley too, but Margaret River, their wine is amazing.
Margaret gets around. And then a place that I didn't get to go to, which is in the north on the west coast, because Australia is literally just people living on the rim.
The outside, yeah.
It's just a big desert in the middle. They should have a huge solar farm, which is growing, I hear. But there's a place that you can swim with whale sharks. It's a weird one. Ningaloo Marine Park. So Ningaloo, like the Kimberley, is this entire area that's this crazy red stones and incredible landscape. Be careful where you swim because there's definitely crocodiles, but you can go swim with whale sharks, and it's not a place that a lot of people know about. Ningaloo Marine Park. Because I was working in tourism, I learned about all of these places.
Yeah,
and that was one of those places that I would highly recommend.
That place sounds cool. I really want to swim with whale sharks. That would be
cool. Calm giants.
Yeah. So when you get out and you get going on all these places, what are your travel ninja essentials is what I like to call it. What are your top 3 essential items?
So I would definitely list a journal in that regard. The second is the size of your backpack.
That's what she said.
I set you up for that one. Nice layup. Nice, like that was an alley-oop to a dunk. So it's a weird one to say because you probably weren't expecting it, but everyone overpacks. Everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Yeah, it happens.
You will bring 5 shirts that you will never wear. You will bring 2 pairs of pants that you will never wear. The most important thing, in all honesty, especially if you're traveling a lot, is to go light, is to take a smaller backpack and really almost take less than you think you need, because if you really need something, you'll acquire it while you're traveling. And there's goods and shirts and things everywhere, so like essentials are the size of your backpack should not be big, should be small, and you should travel light because it's the thing that will affect your happiness more than anything else. Because when you have to schlep to the train station or to the airport or repack because if you're moving a lot, you have to unpack and repack often.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah, it's not fun.
When you're schlepping around a bunch of stuff that you really didn't need to bring. And guess what? Everybody overpacks. There's not one person out there that doesn't overpack. Everybody does it. And then you carry around stuff that you will never use. Force yourself to underpack. That's a travel essential. That's a super ninja tip.
One of the things that I always said is, especially if you're going to be changing places a lot, if you're going to be sitting in one place for a month, okay, I sort of get it. But when you're moving around, you're in a new city. They don't even know if you wore that same shirt and pants for the last 5 days straight. They don't. Yeah. Who cares?
Nobody.
Yeah, no one.
Nobody. Yeah. And it's the one thing that can affect your mental health and happiness on a daily basis more than anything else.
Now, you said earlier you bring you've brought disposable cameras. Do you have another type of camera use, or most people just use their phone?
Yeah, I mean, as the evolution of travel, it was a disposable camera, then digital camera, then at this point, it's just my phone. I don't travel with bigger cameras, or I see that more as a liability than a need. And at this point, with an iPhone 11, you've got a really great camera to do incredible things with. I think travel essential, number 3 is definitely. I would actually argue with that. I mean, obviously, everybody would bring a phone. I think a bathing suit is the 3rd thing that you have to have, because because you never know when you're going to swim, no matter where you're going. So I don't care where you're traveling to. It could be Iceland in the middle of winter. You got to go to the Blue Lagoon and freaking take a hot spring. So
it's true.
Travel essential, size of the backpack, journal, bathing suit.
That's a first. I love it.
You have to.
Yeah,
you never know when you could get into a body of water. Even if you're going somewhere that you don't think you're going to swim, you got to bring the bathing suit.
I agree. The bathing suit, I always have one everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So you talked about your backpack brand. What type of backpack brand do you usually have? Like Keith was a Patagonia slut, he said, but
Patagooch. I think the last one I had, I don't even remember the last one I had. The one that the best one that I've had was the one that I took on the Camino. And that was, I can't remember the name, which makes it, less necessary. Yeah, I'm like looking up backpack brands because I don't remember the name. But again, I don't think it's about the brand. I think like I was given my first backpack by my father that he used to climb Mount Shasta, and I used it, and it was fine. So I would actually dissuade anybody from thinking they need a specific brand.
something that's small, can carry your stuff, and that you can get around with.
And I mean, I like the gifting and there's a whole like travel camaraderie that happened. So like I was given a backpack by my brother once. My dad gave me one, and like that backpack meant something to him, and that story, and that backpack had already traveled, and now it's going on another trip. So if I was going to recommend any brand, I would say get a backpack from one of your friends that's already gone. Yeah, hand me down, because
Perfect.
Because that backpack's already been traveled, and it's already a pro. So you want to take that with you because it'll help you.
It'll bring the spirit of traveling with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you're out, do you have a specific type of, like, I always have a specific type of shoe. It's either New Balance or Nike. I've had people say girls wear Vans. Like, do you wear sneakers, boots, flip-flops?
Yeah. So I did Merrell's for the Camino, which were amazing. I found them at Buffalo Exchange right before I left, which was just so lucky. I think for me, Birkenstocks are one of the best travel shoes on the planet, especially if you had them for a while. There's like the right amount of time to have a Birkenstock. There's like too long where it's the bottoms are worn because they wear easily, but they also form to your foot. So there's like that sweet spot where you've had it for like 2 months. So 2-month-old Birkenstocks are my because the comfort around your foot. I love Birkenstocks. As far as like, you want athletic shoes. You're not trying to be super fashionable. If you want to bring, make your backpack a little bit bigger, you can bring that one pair of nice shoes so you can get into that club that one night. I remember I didn't get into a club in Spain because they looked at my shoes once, and I was like, damn it, this is this kind of place. But for the most part, it's not about style, it's about function. Most of the time you're walking a lot and you're carrying your own stuff. I mean,
I've realized I bring one pair of sneakers, and if I'm going somewhere, I'm hiking, boots, and that's it. Like maybe flip-flops, but one pair of shoes, I just don't care. Do you have a good music selection when you're on the road?
Truth. Yeah. So music is one of those things that you use, it can be an escape that takes you out of the moment. When I was walking the Camino de Santiago, I made a very, very strong decision that I was not going to listen to music at all during my walk. So every day when I'm walking, I had to be present in whatever was going on around me instead of like checking out, being in my own zone. In retrospect, that was a great decision. But in the evenings when I'm at the albergue or the hostel, writing and reading or eating or whatever, I would definitely listen to music. For me, it's nostalgia. There's a sense of, when you don't have a sense of home, I usually use music as a sense of familiarity and home while I'm traveling. So like Paul Simon, Zeppelin, James Taylor, just some nostalgia from my childhood and from family and from friends. I lean against bringing my music into all of the experiences within travel, because oftentimes you're in places where music's totally different. So again, staying curious. I'm not very music forward when I'm traveling. It's not a necessary thing.
What are your top 3 apps? Everyone has their go-to, and this one is important because everyone can start gearing up for their travel apps. What are these? Do you have some special apps that you lean on?
Yeah, communication is, I think, key for me. So, WhatsApp, it's obviously the easiest way to send and receive messages all over the world for free, and it's encrypted. So number one is definitely WhatsApp. If you're not using it yet, you should be.
Yeah, the world uses it pretty much.
Not Americans.
I know.
Nobody in the U.S. uses it. It's ridiculous.
I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. It's the most globally used text messaging and voice memo app on the world, and it's encrypted, and it's also free. So oftentimes you get long distance fees all over the place for stuff. So WhatsApp, number one. I don't lean on technology. So I would say, like, obviously maps. I think back in the day, traveling, when you had a Lonely Planet and had printed out maps and stuff like this, but today it's Google Maps. You know,
Yeah,
Google
that's what
Maps
I
is
use.
everywhere, and it's, you know, even when you're not connected to Wi-Fi, as long as you loaded the map when you were connected to Wi-Fi, you can still see yourself moving on the map.
I know, it's pretty cool. I figured
So
that out
I mean,
too.
that's one of the most important travel hacks by far, is that whenever you have Wi-Fi, open up Google Maps, let it load, you know, zoom out, let it load, and then it will keep track of you wherever you go, you
See,
know,
that's
and
funny. I
that's
used that trick when I was with Keith. I recognize that. But did you know you can download city maps? You
no.
can, yeah. See, I learned that. I didn't know this until South America. So you can go into the city, you search the city within Google Maps, and you can download that city's area. So it doesn't even matter if you're. See, I did what you did, and sometimes like, oh crap, I didn't zoom out to this part. I didn't zoom into these streets. You just download the city map, and then you have it. So I have like a bunch of cities from Colombia.
So it's obviously evolved since
It's
last time.
evolved.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are the only two. I don't. Yeah, I would say, like,
I
try
lean
not
on
to do.
those two all the time.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah.
main.
My third one is, you know, put your phone away. You know.
The app is no app.
Yeah,
The off app.
yeah. Turn it off. Yeah.
So I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time. Obviously, you've got some skills and all this, but how did you ever get the courage to just start getting out on your own? Was it when your brother took you? And
Yeah, I was pushed into the pool. So, like,
Tanaya
having
had
a,
said in the third episode, like start easy in the shallow, and you just got shoved straight into the
yeah,
ocean.
yeah, and I would say there's no better way to learn than that, and rip off the Band-Aid, jump into the water, fucking go for it. So yeah, having older brothers, I got thrown into the pool. You know, I was like, well, I'm thinking about swimming, maybe. It's like, no, I got bum rushed and thrown into the pool, and I really love that about it. I think you should know yourself. You know, obviously, people's comfort zones change, but that's the one thing that you're doing, is you're signing up to challenge your comfort zone, and that's part of what traveling is, and that's where growth lives. I mean, we can all do the Cancun resort or something like that, and sometimes you need it, or Hawaii or whatever. That's a different kind of trip. But I think the traveling that we're talking about around this, you know, this subject, is that you're going to challenge your comfort zone. You're going to go out and go for it. So I would recommend everybody should do something that's a little audacious for their first trip. Something that scares them. If it scares you, good. You know, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, good.
Yeah.
Listen to that. Why? Challenge it, face it, and keep going. And there's different levels of that. So for me, I got thrown in. 17 was like the appetizer, right? 2.5 weeks, not too long. And then 3.5 months, you have to go to these 5 cities. You have to read these 6 books. Good luck. You're on your own. And I remember literally leaving. Well, this is when people could walk all the way to the gate for you. And I'm going down the escalator, and my parents are waving goodbye to me. And I'm going down the escalator, and I see their heads like disappear. And then I turn around and I'm like, fuck, man, I'm going to be alone for 3 months. And it scared the crap out of me. The first night in Madrid in Spain, I was staying in a hostel, in a room with 2 other people that I met on the train and on the plane, and we were already hanging out. We went out for dinner that night. I was alone for maybe 8 days of that entire 3.5 months.
You're never, that's the thing, is you're never really
never
alone. You're not, unless you really choose to be, but you don't have to be. It's so many people want to connect.
Truth.
You know, and you said something about hostels. So when you travel, do you usually stay in hostels, or how do you plan on where you're going to stay? How do you choose?
So I think in today's day and age, I would always recommend to plan the first couple of places, but that's it. Don't plan anything else, because you want to leave it up. Somebody will tell you a tip about somewhere to go and the best place to stay, and you've already made a decision back. It's not an educated decision that you're making from back in the States on where you should stay and where you should travel to. Really, for me, it's only the first place. I don't need to. Yeah. And with today's day and age, you don't need to plan anything, because you can book a spot anywhere at any time.
And it's still cheap. That's the thing, is like with hostels and things like this, you can still get things really cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's still comfort involved in that. And I think, know yourself. So if you want a space to have respite and quietness, you can get a room in a hostel that's by yourself, or
Yeah.
you can sleep in a dorm and really go full on and get woken up by drunk Australians at 2:00 in the morning.
They like to have a good time.
And they're out there. They travel like crazy.
They do.
They're everywhere. So yeah, I would always don't plan too much of the trip. Only plan the first couple of stops, so it's easy to get from the airport to where you're first landing, and then get a sense of where you are, and then don't plan anything else.
I found some of the best places from just talking to people around the hostel, like stuff that you'll never find by just thinking you're going to find it by Googling it. And it is the best by just going.
Exactly.
You've been to a lot of places, and some places are pretty outlandish. And this has been a section I really like figuring more about, is about this visas and immigration. Do you have any tips when it comes to immigration? Like when you face these guys, sometimes it's pretty intimidating.
Yeah, China was tough. I had to wait a long time to get that visa to get into China. And that's, it's just a different world.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's not, the norms are completely different. The way that society treats each other, and the way that you act, and the way that it is, and the faux pas and things that you shouldn't do. Always do research if you need a visa first. I had a plane ticket to go to Brazil, and my friend didn't even tell me that I needed a visa, and I literally couldn't get on that plane that day, which sucked. So
that happened.
So number one, do research if you need a visa, because you can find yourself like ready to get on a plane, and then them look at you and be like, "Do you have a visa?" And you're like, "No," and they're like, "You're not going anywhere." So
Brazil's not cheap.
That's number one. The funniest was when my work visa expired in Australia, because I was there on a living work visa, from Booking.com, and I had stopped working, and I went to Bali for 2 weeks because I fell in love with this girl out there, and then I was flying back through Australia back home. So I was going to be in Australia for 3 more days before I went back to the US to move back home. So I went to Bali, and I'm in Bali, and I'm in the airport, and I'm about to try to get on this plane, and they're like, "Oh, you don't have a visa. So Australia, you need a visa. It costs like $10. You buy it. You can buy it in the airport," which I've done more than once, and online. So I'm about to get on the plane, and I literally am there with my laptop open, buying the visa and asking the lady at the airport to refresh her screen to see that I have a visa. My dad did the same thing when he was coming over. I've done that twice, where I forgot to buy the visa. I bought it in Hawaii once. I bought it in Bali once. So just do research that you need the visa.
When I was going from Colombia to Peru, they were like, "Oh, do you have a exit strategy? Like, when are you leaving?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And I'd already bought my tickets. I'm trying to get on the plane. Then I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll figure that out." So I just walked over to the local coffee shop, and was like researching what I can do to get out. And I'd found bought a bus ticket out of Peru into Bolivia, and then I just forfeited the ticket, So yeah, you got to do the research. Otherwise you don't want to show up at the airport and then all of a sudden you're screwed.
Yeah. There's little bits and with the amount of blogs and the amount of content that's on the internet today, you can find great information very, very easily.
Yeah, I just definitely do the research. So moving forward with positive propaganda and moving into countries and where you're going, what is it that, you're really excited about with getting this into other countries and getting it in front of people's eyes?
Translating. So, I don't pretend to think that I know what positivity looks like in different countries. I know what it feels like in certain circles here in the US, but the whole idea of positive propaganda is that it's a platform that other people can own for what feels like positivity to them. I think there are endless forms of what positivity looks like. In the UK, it's not a different language, but taking the piss out of somebody is actually a positive thing, and it's a form of endearment, and it's really, really meaningful and beautiful. And that's just an example of that. Positivity could be completely different in Russia, probably is, could be completely different in China. I recently asked a friend of mine to translate into Italian some of the phrases that I've created on the flyers that I've created. These things I've literally just created out of thin air. Like, make being nice to each other normal again. Good job getting out of bed today. The universe has your back. Simple things, but they're just random things that I think are important. Then other people tell me that meant something to them. I don't know. I mean, she translated a bunch of them in Italian, and then she added 10 that were just Italian phrases that she knows because she's in Italy. And I'm like, right, those are actually more important for me to make than the ones that she translated, you know. And that's why my hope in this is that people take it upon themselves and they get the inkling that this is an idea that you can put positivity into your worlds, and they will claim it as their own. I don't own this. I'm not the guru. Everybody can have it. And I'm really curious of what phrases mean something to people in China, or what phrases mean something to people in Vietnam. How do you say something nice to each other in that language and then translate it to English and me go, wow, that's, you know, I wouldn't think that calling somebody as beautiful as chicken feet or something, you know, like that's a horrible thing, but maybe that's a term of endearment in China because chicken feet are resilient, you know, and people like them, and they're again, that has no founding or anything, but I'm just giving it as an example. We don't know what positivity sounds like in other countries and other languages. That part really excites me.
Yeah, it's amazing to talk about cultural differences. That's where I was going to kind of go to next, but real quick, have you had chicken feet?
No, I did not. I could have, but I shied away, man.
Okay, so I
wasn't into it.
The first time I had them, I was in Singapore. My colleague, we went to eat late night, and I tried one, and I was gagging. And I was like almost vomiting. But then, and I think it was just the mindset. And then we went out again like a couple months later, and I tried them again, and now I love them. Okay. I think they're great. It's very weird to be eating them, but they're really good. It's so strange.
But you don't eat the bone. You just chew off the chewy skin part,
chew
right?
All the tendons in between the bones.
The tendons.
Yeah, you chew it all. It's so strange, but they're actually really good.
Obviously, they've been eaten for a long time.
It's funny you brought that up. Now, with cultural differences, you know, for you personally, I've had tons of my own experiences, obviously, but how do you deal with that mentally, or how do you approach different cultures? Because there is a different cultural mindset, and especially with Americans, we get kind of a bad rep because of just some travelers and how we're, you know, we're kind of pompous a bit, and we expect people to speak English. So how do you deal with that when you approach new cultures?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an outgoing extrovert, so it's hard not to lead and be kind of outgoing, which is part of my character, which tends to be a great thing a lot of times because I meet people and I make friends. There's a permaculture idea of observation before you impact an environment. So the permaculture idea is that before you think you know how to plant your garden or work the land or generate water or groundwater within the land, you would observe it for a certain time period. You would observe it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then you could plan. My biggest thing about traveling and cultural is great amounts of observation. One of my favorite things to do, the first thing to do is to just go people watch. I'll get to a new country and want to land. So I'll get into, you know, a taxi and get to my hotel or get to my hostel, land, but I can't stay. I leave that hostel as soon as possible.
Yeah, I can't
or get, and I need to go out there and just observe the living environment. Like it's the first thing you have to do. And you throw your bag down and you leave. You don't even unpack and you go observe. And I think through observation is the best way to learn. This is a travel hack is like something that I think people don't necessarily think about. It's very obvious, but when you're traveling, you kind of have a heightened sense of awareness of your surroundings, of what's going on around you, of the emotion of what's happening, of how
you start operating in a conscious way instead of subconscious or unconscious, where we do in our comfort zone, right? You're right. You are operating at a more heightened awareness of your
your peripheral has grown. And you're, and you have to, if you just go about it laissez-faire and don't really think about it, it can be a sobering situation. So I think it's so important to realize when you're traveling, you tap into this heightened state of awareness where you're taking in more of your peripheral at all times as things are happening, so that you're really, you're making sure you're in a good spot and you're in a good place. You never turn that off. That needs to stay on the whole time, because you're a stranger in a strange land. I mean, there's a lot of people that will be nice, and that's the majority of the people you interact with. But culturally, you have to keep that peripheral, like heightened state of awareness of what's going on around you in whatever state of mind you're in. Stay aware, stay listening, keep observing, and take cues from other people that are from there. My favorite was in Tokyo. Japan is so organized and
incredible.
It's just clean. It's clean. It's just so organized. Everybody follows the rules. Everybody follows directions. Yeah, nobody colors outside the lines. So I'm like on the subway, amazing subway system. Oh my God, incredible. And
Yeah.
I'm in there and it's like sardines. And I look out and I'm like, what are those guys doing? So like 10 more people try to get on, and there's literally
People that push people.
that are paid, and they have these big like pieces of plywood, and they just like with handles on them, and they just get up behind this, and they're paid. That's their job. That's their only job. And they just go, and you're in there, and you're like super squeezed, and then all of a sudden you just like even
Like
more
your
squeezed.
feet come off the ground. You're like,
And
up in the
yeah,
air.
and you're like, well, I'm supported by my community. We're good. And again, you know, most people in the States, that would never fly. And we would
No.
be yelling and complaining
Yeah, in my personal space.
and yelling and not a peep. Everyone.
No, it's normal.
So
I
in that
love it.
moment, you know, I took the cues, cultural cues from my surroundings, and didn't react to the fact that I was like, my arms, I had, you know, a Japanese lady in my armpit and like a dude like flew up against me, and we were all really close and cuddling in that moment, and nobody was complaining at all or making a peep. It was just normal.
Amazing.
One of my favorite travel moments of all time. Like,
That's
dude,
so good.
I saw them coming up and I was like, oh, I heard about this. I get to do it? Yes, it's happening.
You have any embarrassing stories that you can share?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much embarrassing. Yeah, there's so many embarrassing. So, you know, as you travel, your stomach just doesn't like bacteria because it's new bacteria. Yay, you've never had this bacteria before.
Yeah.
So I'm in Guatemala, and I remember the taco that did it. I remember the taco, and it was a bad idea to eat that taco. So you're eating street food, and so it's getting late, and there's this guy that's got this piece of meat, and he's just pulling shards of it. He's pulling strings of it with a fork onto this little slow cooker on the street, and we're like, well, let's try it. You know, let's have a couple tacos. So I don't know how old that meat was. You know, there's no like health department checking on the guy you're in Guatemala, Lake Atitlan. I was like literally in the middle of nowhere. And I remember that taco, and we ate those tacos and then continued to party all night, and then ended up having the best tortas I'd have the entire trip, which are like Mexican sandwich in Guatemala. So Guatemalan sandwich, but similar cuisine. And the next morning, 4:00 in the morning, we were traveling in a Volkswagen bus. So we were sleeping in it wherever we parked. It was one of those really smart ways to travel. And there was a public bathroom that you pay to use. And I ran to it, and I couldn't decide what to put on the toilet first. My butt or my face, because everything was going to come out of me. And I literally had a moment where I looked at the toilet, I was like, and I couldn't decide which one was more logical, because everything was trying to escape my body at the same time. And it wanted to come out of every orifice I had. So that was one of the most brutal moments. Thankfully, it didn't happen in the van. Thankfully, there was that public bathroom not that far away. And I went back to that bathroom 7-8 times that morning.
I'm not sure if you've heard Tanaya's episode yet, but she talks about similar situation being in the middle of the Serengeti. And had to use the bathroom, and like when she went, like the guy was driving, was like, "Are you serious?" She's like, "I had no choice."
Dude, yeah.
Like when she looked up, when she was like in the middle of the Serengeti, like near this bush, there was a lion off to her left, and to the right was a cheetah. And she was like, "You have got to be kidding me." She's like, "You couldn't literally shit your pants any harder than that." You know, when it comes to the stomach situations, you know, people don't, especially when you live in a city that's super clean. Let's just say United States or Singapore or Tokyo, where everything's very clean. You know, your stomach is set up to not be ready for all this stuff. You are basically overly protecting your system from being ready to handle antibacterial stuff and viruses and things. And so we overprotect our bodies. And so when I lived in Bali, we had what we called Bali belly. And so, because it's a third world island, and the waters, you can't drink the water, and a lot of stuff that gets washed with things, you got to be careful. And watermelon that grows from the land there has the water in it, so you got to and until you develop that antibody, you're a little bit of a mess. It put down Keith's girlfriend for about a week when they came.
That makes sense.
This stuff will mess you up.
It's part of it, you know.
It's part of the story.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's gonna happen. It's sometime or another, and you'll remember it, and you'll and you'll laugh about it.
I had a buddy that just came and joined me in Colombia for 10 days, and he's from Nevada, and I had already been in Colombia. I mean, I don't know, 5 weeks, and never got sick once. He got back, and apparently he had Giardia for like a month, and it just destroys you. And he had that entire state of Nevada Department of Health calling him, asking him everywhere he's been, what he's been doing, where he's touched. And he called me, he was like, "You're not sick?" I'm like, "No, we ate at all the same places. I'm fine." So again, you're right. It's part of the journey.
It's definitely part of the journey. And I would say those are those cases where you get that, really a tough one. A friend of mine got E. coli when he was in Colombia working at a monkey sanctuary from a monkey, and he lived through it. Obviously, those things happen. It's mostly just like brutal diarrhea for a couple of days, and then you're like, wow, I've had a solid shit, and I've never valued solid shit more than I've ever had than right now. And that's what will happen to most people. The extreme versions don't actually happen that often.
Well, Roberto, while we're in this fun, like random questions, why not? I want to introduce you as the first guest to this new segment that I'm going to call Overqualified Opinions. And this is where I want to know your personal opinion on 5 random questions based on the places that you've been. Short, sweet, and simple answers. Are you in?
Yes.
All right. Number 1, country that has the best food.
Mexico.
Okay. Best beach you've ever seen.
Uluwatu, Bali. Yeah.
It's
climbing down those stairs, and there's literally restaurants built into the rock faces.
Yeah. That is one of the best ones, I will say.
By far.
City that has the most wild nights out.
Yeah, it was Amsterdam. Yeah, dude. That's some crazy nights in Amsterdam.
Yeah. Okay. This, I might know this answer. Where was the worst bathroom experience you've had?
Yeah, so it was in Guatemala, but it was a different bathroom than the one I just told you about. There's another one. So since we had the van, we would pay people random amounts of money to park the van in certain places. We're like, we don't need a bedroom. We don't need your we just need a bathroom. So this coffee farmer in San Marcos in Lake Atitlan let us have his parking lot where he's drying coffee, and there was a bathroom that was connected to the parking lot. It was the scariest freaking bathroom you've ever seen. It looked like many animals had already died in there. I don't know when the last time it was ever cleaned, or if anybody was taking the shit out of the hole. And we used that for about a week living in Guatemala. That's where I came up with the hover handle, which I think is a great product that we should all have, which is like a handle with suction cups on it that you could take into any bathroom, and wherever you are, you just like suction it, and it allows you to hover over the toilet. Because if you can hover, then you never have to put your butt down on it.
That's a great idea.
Hover handle.
The hover handle. All right. Last question. Country that was the most historic.
Italy. Italy blew my mind. I mean, that story of Rome, like being in Rome was just
pretty.
And then like Siena and like Lucca and the smaller cities up in Tuscany and up in northern Italy. These are small towns that still have a wall around the entire city.
Wow.
And yeah, Lucca. Lucca is this tiny little town. No cars can drive into it, and it's got a wall around it. And they're all just little streets that you walk through. And that's historic, man. Yeah, so Italy takes the cake by far.
Awesome. Thank you for helping me with your overqualified opinion. When you go back to Tasmania, because you will go, what are the top 3 things that you would bring back there that will make your experience even better?
A friend.
Okay.
Because I want to share all of those things with them. A bit better hiking boots to do the Cradle Mountain hike, which is like a week hike through a bunch of little actual stopping points that have cool infrastructure, like little huts and things that you stay in for a week in Cradle Mountain. So hiking boots, a friend, and the third would be more time to not leave. I really would love to buy land in Tasmania.
With all your experiences now, what would be your planning to go to Copenhagen? I know what you know about it. What would be the top 3 things that you'd plan to bring there?
Yeah, so like Copenhagen would be my my Rolodex of contacts in Europe, because I want to connect with as many people while I'm in Europe that have been and know things about Copenhagen and have been there because
Yeah, sure.
you want to tap into local culture very quickly in a city as expansive and as interesting. And that's what my thirst is for that city. I would probably bring a video camera to film the public space and how people use it, like time lapses of public space
yeah, some of their stuff is incredible.
and how people use it and how people socially interact with each other in public space. That's one of my I'm most curious about, how people interact in public space in different countries and what that space of the commons looks like. So definitely a video camera, my contacts. Yeah, time again. I would want to stay for, like, literally, a job. I would like to find a job in Copenhagen to live there for an extended period of time.
Now, you get going quite often, and I can realize that now, but how do you plan to get all this done? How do you save? How do you, I keep getting people's opinion, but for you, how do you get prepared for this?
Yeah, travel is something you have to prioritize, and I've done it in different ways throughout my life, whether it's been a mason jar that I throw $20 into whenever I feel inspired. I highly recommend that, in all honesty. It seems somewhat old school, but it's tangible, and it's easier to not touch that than if it's just in your bank account and you can access it from a debit card or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So whenever you've taken a little money out, put $20 into it, but it's something you have to prioritize, and that's the most important. So preparing for it and saving for it has always been, a joy, because you're investing in an experience you're about to go have. And again, once you catch the bug, it doesn't stop. It's something that you want to invest in because the value in it. It's like going to, amusement, like Great America or something, or like Six Flags, like, you're going to have fun. It's going to be amazing, but it's just bigger. And it costs a little bit more, but you make that investment because you're about to go have a really fun time, and you want to prioritize those things in your life. The other thing I think with kind of regular life, regular life has changed a lot as of recent, but whatever jobs you're doing, or, whatever way you make money, or sadly our built environment, like the way that we live life and the way that our jobs are and the way that people make money these days, is that it's very, very stipulated on not leaving. And 2-week paid vacation is all you get in at most.
Yeah,
in a year.
Lucky. Which is why I quit my jobs. This is why I can't, it doesn't fit me.
No, those things are totally backwards. And in other places all over the world, 2 weeks is not done. It's 4 or 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, at Singapore we had 25 days, and that's not even public holidays.
Yeah, that's 5 weeks. Yeah, that's 5 weeks.
The Australia have like 60 days.
Yeah, Australia was 5 weeks minimum for a corporate job of paid vacation.
Yeah, it's good.
So if you have to plan in this country and you have a full-time job, plan accordingly and talk to your boss and feasibly take a sabbatical. I think sabbaticals should become normal. I think sabbaticals should become normal, something that people do every couple of years, or every 5 years at the least, that you take time to get perspective on your life. And that's what travel does. And when we're in the rat race and we're busy, time moves so fast, and you find yourself like, where did the last year just go? And that's a really scary thing. And the one thing that I know works that slows time down is traveling, and it allows you to gain perspective on your life, which I think is one of the most important things that we can do as we grow as humans, as we get older. It's like, wow, lots happened. I'm going to go get some perspective by traveling, and now I can go back in and continue.
If you can imagine all the things that you have, and not the people, in your life, and they were all stuffed into your your travel backpack that you got handed down from your grandfather, if it was to catch on fire, what are the top 3 items that you would pull out and keep?
That's a crazy question. I have a blanket that was my grandmother's from Chile that I think is too important. I have a painting that my dad did of me 2 months before he passed away, which is really important.
That's cool.
And other than that, like those 2 things that come from my family's heritage are super, super important. But I've moved and traveled and picked up and left, and I'm a minimalist. So yeah, I don't have a lot of, I let go of things really, really easily. There's only a couple of things that I really, really keep. So, something that I've always wanted to keep having is music. So, when I did the Camino, I carried a drum with me the entire time I was walking through Spain. So I would bring my drum so I could keep playing music.
Yeah, that's cool. I just got a guitar, so I'm learning as well.
Got to do it.
Learning some indigenous Amazonian plant medicine songs for my journeys.
You need a flute. You need a flute too.
I have one. Not good at it, but I have one.
I knew it.
I played around the house. My sister always laughs because I only know like the same little tune. That's it. What do you say is, you've shared a couple things. What do you think the greatest gift is people received for themselves through traveling abroad of their own country?
Yeah, perspective. You live in defined confines constantly because of the people you surround yourself with, the person that you were around them, the culture. I remember Joe Rogan said after he was like hosting TV shows and stuff, he went back to his hometown and he still felt like that, like kind of a loser kid in high school, because that was the last person he was in that city. And it kind of had that definition of him still overlaying it. And I think that a very controlling piece of personalities is your surroundings. And even the people that love you, they think of you as a certain person, and that defines you when you're around them. Older brothers is my great example. Like, I'm not your younger brother anymore. I mean, I'm always your younger brother, but I'm taller than you now. So, so I would say the biggest is the self-discovery of who you are and who you can be and who you really are. I don't think you'll gain that perspective by staying in your hometown forever. I think you only gain that perspective is when you go outside of your comfort zone and you shed all of the people and places and things that have defined you in this life. And you might go out and realize that one of those things is totally something that's important to you, even more so. And it would reiterate and reinforce something that is part of your life. I'm not saying that everybody goes out and goes, oh my God, I didn't know I wanted to be a trapeze artist. I'm so glad I traveled. That's not what I'm talking about. Perspective is perspective is perspective. It's, wow, that is really important to me. Wow, I see how I've been limiting myself in this way because of that I'm hanging out with too many people that I know from high school or something like that. And I'm still in high school in that way. So travel is the gift of perspective, both in the world and kindness towards other cultures, as well as perspective on yourself more than anything. That's why I've loved traveling by myself.
One thing you said reminded me of 2 years ago, a real close friend of mine from Singapore. He had said to me, and he said this quote, and it just impacted my heart. And he said, no man or woman ever became a prophet by staying in his hometown. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. And that alone was like, dang, it made me like appreciate all the things that I've done by leaving and sacrificing leaving my family and my close friends that I grew up with the high school with, is because, people that become prophets go out and discover things and find things. And like you said, the self-perspective of who you are and who you can be is huge. Yeah, that's really great.
And you don't find it unless you challenge yourself. And I think whatever that challenge looks like, go for it. That's the most important thing.
With your big desire in traveling, how do you stay focused on your dreams of positive propaganda and with wanting to travel, like especially in a time like right now?
Yeah, so it's been tough as far as like the passion projects and then the working world and being a 9-to-5 professional, traveling the world and working for startups and technology, and then kind of now leaning back into the pendulum swing. And I think right now, the balance of all of it is the most important. At 37, I'm looking back and I'm like, okay, how do I have my cake and eat it too? Like, how do I have enough skills and wherewithal in the world to make the best life cocktail I've ever made, or cake. It doesn't have to be alcohol. Mm-hmm. So I see at this point, the most important thing is finding a way to continue the work and travel, because I think they're one and the same. So like I think as you get older, the most important thing is to give yourself work, is to not continue to ask the world for a job. I think if you're always looking for somebody else to give you a job, you kind of never really know what to do with yourself. You're just waiting for direction. And that's what school and that's what education and that's what kind of get your ass in line mentality is of our culture. I'm getting older and now I'm like waiting for other people to give me jobs, or I'm in between jobs right now. In all actuality, I got sick of waiting for somebody else to give me a job, and I gave myself work. I gave myself work that I wanted to do.
Right.
So I think there's a really important piece in all of our lives to find the work that we want to give ourselves, whether it's playing music, whether it's painting, whether it's volunteering, at an old folks home to talk to people about stories, or whether it's cooking for kids on the weekends, whatever it is, but give yourself work. And that work doesn't have to be connected to a monetary reward. It's just the work that you want to do.
Right.
So thankfully, the work that I want to do actually has a lot of abilities to travel. And I, at this point in my life, I really want to take it on the road and go and talk to more people about it. I want people's reactions. I want to test things out. This is a social experiment. I need to be within the social atmosphere and see what the response is. So I think long-winded answer is just build travel into your life. And thankfully, the work that I'm giving myself at this point is realistic to be able to travel and do it at the same time. Do I want to put all of the pressure on positive propaganda to make money and take me places? No, I don't. I don't think that's actually a good thing. So I would rather let it exist organically and continue to grow and be whatever it wants to be than put it in a pressure cooker.
Here's that one last question. Well, not last, but the one powerful question I always like to ask. If you were to see your little Roberto self on the street passing you, and you had your little backpack on overflowing with school books and supplies, what solid piece of advice would you give him?
I think it's the one, it's kind of the one that we all would say is that, go for it sooner. The things that you feel are real. So go for it sooner. Don't, that perspective, obviously we had to gain over our lives, but if you could tell yourself to go for it sooner and don't listen to other people and run with your ideas at an earlier time, that would be awesome. The other thing for sure, because high school is just brutal on so many people, or middle school, or wherever, fucking school is just brutal. I think the most important thing is that this is not forever. This will change. The things that you think are the most important things right now
won't be later.
Will change within a year. I promise you that. Everything that you will change within 6 months. So everything that you're giving a lot of emotional weight to as a kid, please let go of, because they will only change drastically
even
over
now
the next.
As an adult,
yeah,
we hang on to things so tightly. I heard a really great quote is, just because the shoes that you're wearing right now does not mean that they're going to be the same shoes that you're wearing later.
Yeah.
And to accept that flexibility and adaptability and flow with things.
Yeah. One of my positive propaganda signs is, things will change and you will change too. That's just a reality. And it's totally okay.
For sure. Being the king of quotes, Mr. Positive Propaganda, any last piece of advice for the listeners when it comes to life, when it comes to traveling? Again, do you have any quotes that you live by that you can share with us before we jump out of here?
Yeah, I mean, you were touching on it earlier too, and I think curiosity is the most important thing that our entire society needs to embrace more. I think curiosity is the most important. Before you judge somebody, you stay curious with them, before you put them in a box of who they are because you see that they're wearing a MAGA hat, or they're, or they're coming out of church, or they have dreadlocks, whatever it may be. Be curious. If you start with curiosity, you instantly have the power to bridge gaps and to connect with somebody. So be curious with each other is the one that I think is the most important. Especially in today's world where we're so polarized and we're so pouring lemon juice on wounds of our differences. So like differences. Can I make that difference pain more exacerbated? And all of our media and all of everybody around you tells you why you should hate somebody else for what they think and why. And I think the biggest thing that we need is to stop and ask questions and be curious with each other. No matter who it is, no matter how different they are, no matter how the same they are, stay curious with each other.
Hey, are you open to sharing your social media details for the audience to connect with you?
And
especially positive propaganda, please.
So there's actually, my Instagram is positive.propaganda. There is another positive propaganda in Germany that does murals, which means we're obviously collective consciousness is real. This is an idea that, again, I want everybody to be a part of. It's not just me. I just want to champion the idea. That's what I want to go wave that flag everywhere I go. So it's positive.propaganda. You'll see, you can search the hashtag. The hashtag is kind of where all the content lives that other people post. And now new things are showing up on the hashtag that other people are doing. And that's the whole idea, is that it's a collective conversation of what positive propaganda can look like. I'm on Instagram. It's just Port Berto. So like if you think about, you can come into Port where Berto is, Port Berto. Instagram is kind of the only space that I actually give a lot of time to. Facebook, not so much. Facebook, it's positive propaganda people. That's the larger name because everyone's invited to this. It's not, there's no exclusions.
And you just launched off Kickstarter too, right?
Yeah, I launched a Kickstarter about 2 weeks ago today, actually, and that's live on Kickstarter. So you can search for it by Positive Propaganda, and there's a lot of fun things you can get on there as far as swag and hoodies and pop sockets and ambassador boxes with staple guns. And you can also support a school program that I'll be creating with teachers and counselors to apply this model to early education and build it into the curriculum, which is something that you can just give money to, because going back in September, how kids go back to school and their emotional wherewithal when they go back to school, they're going to need positivity even more so. So I'm building that curriculum right now. So you can get stuff, or you can just give to the larger idea.
Yeah. Incredible. I'm going to post all that stuff along with some stories and on the Facebook page on Inspire the Collective. Definitely want to get all that information out there. The ambassador program sounds like something fun, and us at Inspire the Collective want to be a part of as well. Roberto, as we near the end of this episode, man, thank you so much for being on the show. Truly an honor to have you with me and to continue this journey for the podcast. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your perspectives, your stories with us.
Darn right, man. I'm so glad you're doing this too. I can't say it enough. You're an example of going after your dreams, whatever they look like, and not putting barriers in between you and your ability to do them. We all make excuses, and excuses come in all shapes and sizes and all flavors and all kinds. And there is really no excuse. You just do it,
we create the obstacles, and I've realized for 37 years I've done it enough, and so I decided just to take a leap off the cliff of trust and abundance.
And they can be stepping stones. It doesn't always have to be a leap off the cliff. It could be just one step towards something. It could just be the smallest way to walk towards that idea, and start with that. And that's enough. And I would say you definitely jumped, and I commend you for it. And you're like in one of those squirrel suits flying, kicking ass right now. Yeah.
I like that analogy. I'll take that. It's so amazing. So amazing. I appreciate that. Roberto, stay safe out there. Keep inspiring the world with your positivity. Welcome to the family and the tribe of Inspire the Collective. We're so happy to be a part of Positive Propaganda. Keep that bag strapped and laced. And the Pro Traveler Mindset tip for the week is, as we all sit at home and we think and we have time to ourselves, there is something super powerful about this time in isolation, and that is being alone has a power that very few can even handle. And that's going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining Mr. Roberto and I for this episode. But get ready, as next week's guest is a little powerhouse of inspiration. This woman, Miss Darcy Liu, will be joining us from the surf capital of China, Hainan Island. This woman became the first women's pro surfer of China, not only putting herself, but China on the map for this sport. Since then, she's been traveling the world, and not only that, she has shifted a huge focus for herself into sustainability and ocean conservation work. If you want to be inspired by one human's journey to give more of herself than she gets back, she is the needle in the haystack. Currently residing in the little fisherman's village of Hohai, where she shreds waves daily, teaches travelers and locals how to surf, and also owns and operates a really cool little healthy living lifestyle restaurant. Any listeners have questions about surfing, conservation, life, literally anything that we can uncover from Miss Darcy Liu, please comment, message, share, whatever is on your mind so we can have her input on what you want to hear about. Until next week's episode, stay safe out there, stay humble, and stay tuned for another episode of What's in Your Backpack. Please stay current with Inspire the Collective. Head over and join our Facebook page, where there will be updated photos from this episode, Roberto's tips and tricks, and information about Roberto's journey, plus much more. And don't forget, we're further expanding our reach, so please join us. Get involved as we grow our web-based community. Go find us over at www.inspirethecollective.com, where you can find our Facebook page and our YouTube page under the same name, Inspire the Collective. And don't forget to follow my Instagram at Michael__O'Shea to get your fill of inspirational content, podcast updates, and travel fun. Try to remember that you can't buy happiness, but you can buy a plane ticket. And that's sort of the same thing.